The Newhall Art Collection is Europe's largest collection of work by women and is displayed across an iconic brutalist building that was designed as a manifesto for the education of women. What's wonderful is that wherever you are in college, you will almost certainly be in the company of work by women. The story really begins with Valerie Pearl. Valerie Pearl arrived at college and was responsible, along with a committee, of appointing the leading kind of American feminist artist, Mary Kelly, as the first artist in residence at Newhall. It was at this point that Mary Kelly produced a body of work called Extas, which is part of a much larger series called Interim. Her work is very much inspired by women's liberation. It's a work that considers how one represents women. It was acquired by the college and became the nucleus of the collection. Tell us about the kind of start of the story of Newhall College.
The college was founded in 1954 by Rosemary Murray, our first president.
So,
and yeah, there we have her there. They were founded just 6 years after the admission of women on the same terms as men to Cambridge. The first women's college was 1869. So there were two iconic women's colleges, but the women who studied there could not take degrees. And that didn't happen until 1948. There was a long history of resistance to women being at Cambridge. And once that victory came, people's minds turned to the other question of how many women could study at Cambridge. There was not much room for them here. And that's what led to founding a third college. And you can see here that they didn't initially have their first building, and it took them then another 10 years to raise the funds and to build this incredible building that we're in today. The architects, Chamberlain, Powell and Bomb, created something extraordinary. And Rosemary Murray really insisted on that idea of looking up, of women's aspiration. And you can also see it here in the library. You can see there's a kind of high sweep. There's all these mezzanine floors. I always think of it as a bit like King's College Chapel, but done for the 20th century and done for women's education. It was an extraordinary achievement. In fact, the architects went on to design the Barbican, so it's one of London's most iconic modernist buildings. So this is a real space of architectural innovation.
What do you think about the kind of collection? Just personally, I'm just interested to hear your feeling about how do you see it integrate within the college, architecture within the life of the college?
It transforms it. It really speaks to that vision of women are here. No one's got their future mapped out for them here. They can come and they can make their own future. Valerie Pearl embarked on an extraordinary project. Working with the curator Anne Jones, they assembled a list of women artists who they invited to donate an artwork. So they set about writing to these women artists. Out of that list, they had about 75 people donate work, and it was a list that grew very organically. At that time, these artists wanted to be represented, and it was giving them that platform and a voice to do so. Since 1986, the collection has grown. We now have over 500 artworks, and artists continue to be generous and donate work. I'm here with Gail Chong-Kwan in this Fellows Dining Room. Tell us about the work you make.
This is a series of work that I developed through research in Mauritius, which is the birthplace of my father, around the idea of the kind of consumption of the island through the touristic gaze.
And tell us more about the work, because I know that they involve food, and I know that the chefs here were kind of involved with their location and their placement within this space.
So it was wonderful to feel that the work was almost kind of like site-specific work, and to work with the chefs to place it in a site where people eat. So each of the different works, some of them might not be things that people actually want to sit next to while they're eating. For example, Babel, which is made out of different forms of meat. So you can see how it's been sewed, you can see the pins in it. So there's something quite sort of crude about it as well.
Were these sort of sculptures that you created and then photographed?
Yeah, so they're large-scale sculptures. It's made almost as kind of Victorian miniature theatrical sets.
And this is one of the kind of bigger donations in the collection. We obviously have 5 quite large-scale photographs. So tell me about how that came about.
I felt absolutely delighted to donate these works. It really felt like a gift to me as well in some sense. And it really came about through my relationship with the previous curator, Eliza Gluckman, and her role in knowing that she would take care of the works.
And what does it mean more broadly to be part of a collection of work by women?
There's something very supportive. We're kind of joining a community somehow. It doesn't feel like a collection in terms of monetary value. It feels like a collection as a kind of body of strength.
Something I'm really interested in as a curator is this interplay between the collection and the architecture. So there's this wonderful kind of dance, I think, between the architecture and the art. And so it's almost as if you're in this kind of expanded exhibition. And I'm really interested in how you sort of play with that and kind of choreograph that space. A key work in the collection is by the British artist Rose Garrard, who's made a work called Madonna Triptych that at the centre features a self-portrait by Judith Leyster, who was a 17th century Dutch woman artist whose work kind of fell into posthumous obscurity. Her work was wrongly attributed to her male contemporaries. Rose Garrard reinstates her absolutely at the centre of the frame. But interestingly, this frame falls to the floor. It tumbles into the space where you stand. So I feel that in a way she's making a comment about reinstating women in the spaces where we see art.
We are here in the dome, the kind of iconic dome, the sort of key piece of architecture. Tell me what it was like being a student here.
Merritt Woods, I think, is so different from most other stuffy, old-fashioned Cambridge colleges. And I mean, the dome doubling as an art gallery, doubling as a study space, kind of embodies that really well. So it was just such a nice way to live your Cambridge experience, I think, and made it very different.
And what impact did the collection have on your time here?
Living here and being surrounded by it, and also art by women, and such different styles and such different pieces was really helpful in making me comfortable around contemporary art, and having it everywhere, from the corridor in front of my bedroom to our dining hall, was really a big part of this. It just really changed the way I approached it, and I feel like now my relationship to art has been really shaped by being at Murray Edwards.
Do you have any personal favourites in the collection?
A few favourites. Some are hidden away, but there's the Mutsalter over there that I can show you. So this is a picture of Alice Walker by Maud Salter, who is this Scottish Ghanaian photographer and poet and artist, and it's such a warm, colourful, happy picture, which is why it's my favourite. And it never moved throughout my time at Cambridge. It was always there watching over us. So it's such a nice counterpoint to everything else that is in Cambridge dining halls.
I never fail to mention generosity, which for me is absolutely in the spirit of this place. I think this place is something to be shared by everybody, and there are so many different moments when you can come and enjoy it for yourself.
We're here in Emma Darwin's former greenhouse from the late 19th century with Joe Cobb, the head gardener, has been here for over 20 years. What's your vision for the garden?
Everything we do here, we have students in mind. And we want the students to be really involved in the garden. We want them to use it how they want to use it.
And in what way do you provide that?
Controversially, we said to students, you can pick the flowers, and in fact we really encourage you to pick the flowers, and if you pick all the flowers then we're not growing enough. And that made a huge difference to the way everyone sort of saw the garden. We went into the college and we looked at all the art collection, saw the light, how it played on the concrete, how it worked with the art collection, and we decided that colour had to come out of the art collection into the garden, and that the garden should just be about colour.
So what other role does the collection play in your design or thoughts for the garden?
Almost gives us permission to garden. Before we really began to think about the collection, the garden was just very, very plain. Nicola Hicks' cow says moo. We leave the grass long because she's meant to be in a meadow, that wonderful cow, isn't it? And the Naomi Press, we did these huge circles around that. We were really inspired by that sculpture, yeah. So having a curator really made a huge difference. And people began to look at the college and the grounds completely differently. Because it was curated, it was a much more serious way of looking at what we do and looking at the art collection.
We have a very busy public programme. We put on temporary exhibitions downstairs in Lower Fountain Court, such as the Femme Folio exhibition, which was a series of 20 works on paper by some of the leading American artists working in the 1970s. The collection is at a key moment, and we've achieved so much already having a curator in post. There is so much more we can do to raise the profile of the collection. This is the second largest collection of work by women in the world. We want to continue to be a platform for artists, to expand the collection, bring new perspectives to it, and to become a leading voice with women at the centre.